Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My dear students of honors part 4, how you folks are doing? In our last meeting, I was discussing Emily Dickinson's view of immortality, part 1, and in my today's lecture, I will continue with Emily Dickinson's view of immortality, and it will be the last segment on this discussion. And I would like to remind you, my dear students, that it is hard to locate a developing pattern in Emily Dickinson's poems on death, immortality, and religious questions. Clearly, Emily Dickinson wanted to believe in God and immortality, and she often thought that life and the universe would make little sense without them. Possibly, her faith increased in her middle and later years. Certainly, one can cite certain poems, including those not live yet, as sign of an inner conversion. However, serious expression of doubt persist apparently till the very end of her life. And let us today begin with the poems of faith in immortality. Once, when temporarily deprived of her eyesight and so thrown back wholly on her inner world, she stated her faith in positive terms. The only news I know is bulletins all day from immortality. The only shows I see, tomorrow and today, perchance eternity. When her eyesight was restored to her, the old doubts assailed her again. Perhaps her final position was that it was better to be in a state of unbelieving search than to accept a creed on the basis of habit or authority. There are other assertions of faith too in her poetry. The poem, though the great water sleep, describes the assurance of immortality. Those not live yet is one of our most confident statements about the existence of the soul after death. Those who doubt the truth of immortality, she says, are not actually alive, for without immortality's hope, man exists as a dead spirit in a physical body. And let us see, my dear students, the unresolved conflict in Emily Dickinson. Whenever the formulas of conventional religion are invoked, her inquiring mind cancels them out or balances them in a precarious equilibrium. Such is the case in the poem The World is Not Conclusion. Once again, the positive assertion of believing the opening lines gives way to the statement of doubt, which begins to gather strength and which originates in the very second line with the scientific word species used for the kind of the world that extends beyond this visible world. In one of her best poems, My Cocoon Titans, colors tease, the cocoon is merely a conceit and the real theme is immortality. The poem does not offer an analogy confirming faith so much as a phenomenon in nature that raises a question: is the human body likewise only a cocoon from which there will be a glorious release? But words of doubt are scattered liberally through the opening and the close of the poem. The poem derives its strength from the tensions of unresolved conflict. And now let us see the dilemma stated in scientific terms. Her search for new symbols of belief was as endless as her doubts were persistent. In the famous poem Safe in the Alabaster Chambers, she once again turns to the new scientific thought for effective terms to state her dilemma. The first stanza of this poem expresses a religious view of death with a confident belief in personal immortality. The second stanza contains a humanist view of life in a world vibrant with sensations but precariously enjoyed. The third stanza contains a scientific view of cosmic peace achieved by extinction. The belief in immortal life in the first stanza comes into conflict with the cold astronomical concept of eternity in the end. Now, my dear students, let us see the fading vision of immortality in Emily Dickinson's poetry. Then there is another famous poem behind me, Deep's Eternity, one of her finest on the subject of immortality. The pure life of immortality shines behind this poem, though it never fully materializes in the text. Here, the aspiration towards immortality is again expressed at the beginning, but the vision soon fades and she becomes a representative of the common lot of mankind. As she turns her eyes upward, there is only a maelstrom in the sky, a nightmarish chaos in place of the cosmically ordered universe of the stars of the preceding stanza. Such is the term between the author's mortal life, which in the main comprises the world of her poetry. And my dear students, let us see a religious poet, and this is the concluding part of this concept of immortality, the final direction of Miss Dickinson's poetry and the pressures that created it can only be described as religious, though her attitude differs widely from what is conventionally understood by the term. By religious, here we mean asking passionately the question of the meaning of our existence. It is not necessarily connected with the creeds and activities of particular institutions dedicated to belief in the existence of God and devotion to His service. Indeed, many people who have been seized by this infinite concern are religious while rejecting the religions. And my dear students, I hope that if you listen to these two lectures, the last lecture and this lecture simultaneously, you will have a very good concept on the view of immortality of Emily Dickinson in her poetry. And with these few words, I would like to conclude my lecture for today. Thank you very much for watching.